cold at the moment, so I hope I have enough energy to entertain you. Hello everyone, thank you for coming. However, art is not for everyone. It never was, and it never will be. And I think I am too young to give a talk on art. It really is the hardest subject to talk about. And English is my second language. Speech is not my medium. I think it was the French poet Paul Valéry once said that speech is a means to multiply itself into nothingness. And Wittgenstein said that whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. Also Goethe have this often repeated pronouncement that create artists talk. Despite all these concerns and warnings, I'm going to shamelessly talk to you about art today. I think this mic is hello? Okay. So to begin with, I would say that there is no definition of art. The minute we attempt one, it disintegrates. Much as art oscillates constantly between loss and rebirth, art is never where we expect to find it or hope to grasp it. The more powerful the lens of the microscope, the more art and its uniqueness elude us. To paraphrase the gospel, I would venture to say that where art is, we cannot reach. Yet, I think for me that more and more I find all things are connected. I think I just may be able to talk about art with analogies, parallels, and stories. In other words, in a roundabout way, I think perhaps would be the most interesting and the most possible way to talk about art. I guess you all have seen the poster, the seminar poster that's outside, a bit embarrassing, and the topic of the poster says, can we have a renaissance in a postmodern age, something like that. I wrote the topic and the abstract about 4 months ago, and I'm already bored with it, so there will be a change of plan. I think I'm going to paraphrase an overused philosophical quote and to change the title of today's seminar into I love, therefore I am. I was only told recently that the previous artists in residence would use this opportunity to talk about their own works. And I was advised that I should use this opportunity to talk about mine as well. However, the person who gave me that piece of advice also spoke to me during another occasion. He told me that he'd like to be impressed rather than being impressive. And it was a lovely line. And I think that's world of art that I'd like to be impressed rather than being impressive. I've only been painting for 5 years. I'm not sure if my paintings can be called art already. And I often feel a tinge of unease when calling myself an artist in public. And I think I'm not alone in this case. Pablo Picasso famously made this confession. He said that when I am alone with myself, I have not the courage to think of myself as an artist in the great and ancient sense of the term. Giotto, Titian, Rembrandt were great painters. I am only a public entertainer who has understood his time and has exhausted as best he could the imbecility, the vanity, the cupidity of his contemporaries. Mine is a bitter confession, more painful than it may appear. But it has the merit of being sincere. In our time, people have all kinds of definitions for art and artists. The British art star Tracey Emin famously defended her infamous installation called My Bed on national TV. So when the interviewer on BBC asked her, "Tracy, why is this art?" And she famously said that this is art because I say so and I am an artist. She's not the first one, and certainly not the last. For example, in the 60s, there was this Italian artist called Piero Manzoni. He put his feces into multiple cans and then sell the can as the price of gold. And nowadays, these cans are worth more than the price of gold. In my opinion, I think that both artists, Tracey Emin and Manzoni, is replicating the legendary 1970s Marcel Duchamp's fountain, a urinal. Smart joke back then. And 100 years on, artists today are still replicating this joke. Having devoted myself to painting in 2013, so it's about 5 years ago, I studied, my undergraduate was in commerce, and my postgraduate is called Masters of Media Arts and Production, so it's mainly filmmaking. I consider myself an outsider to the art world. I once wanted to apply for an MFA at a top London art school, and hoping to get a foot in the door of the art establishment. However, upon seeing the school's degree show, I withdrew my decision. The works on the show was too ugly, too boring, and perhaps use a theoretical term, too radical for me to consider them as art. So in response, I spent months reading and researching, visiting museums, in order to find out why. There are perhaps hundreds of theorists and philosophers of the 20th century have tried to explain postmodernism, including postmodern art. However, the answer I find most convincing is from the greatest Russian author, Fyodor Dostoevsky. In his famous book, Crime and Punishment, he tells the story of an intelligent, impoverished, nihilistic young man, an ex-student who had lost all beliefs, or at least certain fundamental values. And through his own convoluted logical reasoning, he believed that for certain people, all is permitted, including murder. And to prove this point, he committed a very brutal manslaughter. He killed an old woman who's an unscrupulous pawnbroker, and along with her sister, with an axe. Then, after proving this reasoning of his own, that all, including murder, is permissible, as a consequence, he is left in a pure, anarchic, and confused mental state, and was tormented by the dreadful freedom he created for himself. Hence, crime and punishment. I find this story a parallel to art today. Right? God is dead. Art is dead. All is permitted. When the highest values are losing their value, when there is no boundaries. So I expressed my findings in a painting, also called Crime and Punishment, in 2013. So that's the first year of me in painting. Well, let me just explain. So Elephants in the Room is the subtitle. Of course, it's referring to the English idiom, elephant in the room. Emperor has no clothes, only a child dare to speak. I like this quote, and I think it sort of summarized the mood of the painting by W.B. Yeats from The Second Coming. It says, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passion, intensity. I'm just going to further explain a little bit of this work. It's just over there. So it's a very illustrative work. I don't do that kind of work anymore, but I think it has its merits. This part of the painting, so about 2/3 of the painting, is actually based on the composition of Goya's late black paintings. One of them is called The Pilgrimage of Sancy Isidro. He did an early one, and then in the Black series did another one. It's both called Pilgrimage of Sancy Isidro. This is Tracy Ammon, Charles Saatchi, the patrons of the YBA group, so the Young British Artists, Jacques Derrida, Damien Hirst and his Colourful Scowl, it's one of his work, Michel Foucault, Andy Warhol, Jeff Koons, Marcel Duchamp, and Clement Greenberg, which is one of the art critics or art theorists of postmodern art. And also he's filled with the contemporary works. This is one of the contemporary works. This is by, it's like a boys with genitals and assholes. It's a famous work by Chapman Brothers. I don't know if you know them. They're very, very big names in the contemporary art world. These are just, this is just a chimpanzee. Elephants, I put them in, just remind me of circus. And this one is by Mark Queens. It's called the Aunt Venus, or at least was being trying to compare that to the armless Venus. It's just this very disabled woman, and he did a cast of her. She was pregnant, and then the work was selected for the 4th plinth on the Trafalgar Square in London. So it was placed in one of the most important public places in central London. About I think it was in 2007 or something. And I put a Nietzsche's quote to explain. So Nietzsche says, "What I relate in the history of the next 2 centuries, I describe what is coming, what can no longer come differently, the advent of nihilism." This history can be related even now, for necessity itself is at work here. This future speaks even now in 100 signs. This destiny announces itself everywhere. Well, he famously said he predicted what is coming for the next 2 centuries, and I think it became true. I think there is a very obvious parallel between the death of God and the death of art. For some, perhaps some may even venture to say that the death of God caused the death of art. And certainly for me, God and art are interchangeable concepts. God is art, art is my God, art is my religion. I want to read to you a parable written by Nietzsche, first appeared in his Gay Science. I just find it very, very beautiful. So this is the parable of the madman. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, "I seek God, I seek God." As many people who did not believe in God were standing around just then. He provoked much laughter. "Has he got lost?" asked one. "Did he lose his way like a child?" asked another. "Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrated?" Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. "Whither is God? To what place is God?" He cried, "I tell you, we have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns, are we not plunging continually, backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying us through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives? Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred gates shall we have to invent? Is not the greatest of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed. The whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. I think it's a beautiful echo to Dostoevsky. Okay, now I'm going to talk about art instead. The death of art has been much discussed for a long time, notably by nearly all the avant-garde of the 20th century, from the Dadaists to the Marxists to the postmodernists. We saw art dropping the road of progress, yielding to a radical new future, and an art bearing no resemblance to what had existed before. Art has to be buried in the name of historical justice, like poverty, the ruling classes, obsolete cars, or an old-fashioned gentleman. Who are the greatest artists today? Jack Koons. That's Michael Jackson, and he's the Pat Monkey, Bubble. Damien Hirst, the Diamond Scow, Tracy Emin, My Bed, Banksy. This one is in East London, in Brick Lane. Or Marina Abramovic. So it's a performance art in MoMA that she literally, it's called The Artist is Present, so she just sit there and do nothing. Or Ai Weiwei, performing 操你妈的娘. It's a word play, meaning that and Yayoi Kasuma, so the dots lady, or the Japanese Jack Koons, it's called a Kai Kai, and he's collaboration with Louis Vuitton. What art has become today? Fashion. I don't mean so literally, but this is a literal case. It's I think this is the newest collection. So it's Jack Koons working for Louis Vuitton and designed this. It's called a print pattern bag. Yeah. So I think it's not that art disappears. Its history simply stops. After that comes nothing but a period of repetition. In which art keeps duplicating its form, emptied of its spirit. Its death occurs quietly, unnoticed, and no one is outraged. If art should really disappear, it will do so not because it has exhausted its powers, but because it exists in a world grown alien to it. This guy is called Frederick James. Apparently he's one of the leading theorists of postmodernism. And in his book on this postmodernist subject, and he opened his book in this statement. I think it's a quite nice statement. And he says, "It is safe to grasp the concept of postmodern as an attempt to think the present historically in an age that has forgotten how to think historically in the first place. Now I just want to read these two quotes to you, and I think it goes well hand in hand together, and it explains why. So why has the advent of nihilism become necessary? Because the value we have had hitherto does draw their final consequence, because nihilism represents the ultimate logical conclusion of our great values and ideals, because we must experience nihilism before we can find out what value these values have. It's by nature to power. And then this line is the next line is by Dostoevsky. It's from a letter that he wrote in prison. He says, if anyone could prove to me that Christ is outside the truth, and if the truth really did exclude Christ, I would prefer to stay with Christ and not the truth. So, next, I want to talk to you about the notion of border. I guess you all heard the story Pandora's Box from Greek mythology. So the Zeus, the king of gods, gave Pandora a jar or a box, contained all kinds of evils, and Pandora opened the box, so many evils like death, disease, all flew out the box. And so she hastened to close the box, and the only one that stayed in the box, the only evil, is hope. I find this story fascinating because hope was one of the evils. By drawing a border, so in this case, is the box, between one thing and other things, something new occur, and evil become hope. This is from Ingeborg Bachmann. I can't pronounce the first name. She wrote this, it's a 20th century female poet, and she wrote this poem with Bohemia Lies by the Sea. I'm going to read you a few lines from that beautiful poem. If a word here borders on me, I'll let it border. If Bohemia lies by the sea, I'll believe in the sea again. And believing in the sea, thus I can hope for land. I still border on a word and on another land. I border like little else on everything, more and more. I border like little else on everything, more and more. Every border is an illusion set up in order to cut us and to lead us to believe in a permanent location. And yet, without borders, without this illusion of borders, we are incapable of living either as individuals or in relation to others. There is a special border, the border between art and life, which often shifts deceptively. Yet, without this border, there is no art. Duchamp and the avant-garde of the 20th century were trying to rebel against, back then was the neoclassical kitsch that dominated the previous century. So something like that. Placing a urinal in an exhibition and call it art, that's a brave and ingenious gesture. As a consequence, it radicalized the border between art and life. But it can only be done once or twice at the most. The third time, it turns the ready-made back into a urinal. Art cannot be repeated. Otherwise, it will soon turn into kitsch. I mean, you see, this is the most famous oil painting of the PR China. You see the reference. This is a raft of Medusa by Jericho, a beautiful work of the 19th century. And then you see its replicas. And it is the most important, or one of the most important oil paintings of the 20th century, I think. Of China, of course. Otherwise, no one knows. So, what is kitsch? Is it just an over-polished object on a granite altarpiece? I think it's not just that. Milan Kundera had a very good description about kitsch, and I'd like to read to you. He wrote in his most famous novel, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Kitsch causes two tears to flow in quick succession. The first tear says, "How nice to see children running on the grass." The second tear says, "How nice to be moved along with all mankind by children running on the grass." It is the second tear that makes kitsch kitsch. How nice to act like a rebel against the establishment, calling oneself an artist by being artless. By selecting 300 ancient poems of his time from thousands, Confucius compiled Shi Jing, so I hope you all know, the Book of Songs, or it's also translated as the Book of Poetry, which is one of the cornerstones of Chinese literature. So, in the Analects, it says, 子曰诗300，一言以之，曰思无限. The master said, the Book of Poetry, or the Book of Songs, are 300 pieces, but the design of them all may be embraced in one sentence, having no deprived thoughts. What is deprived thoughts? Surely Confucius is not talking about moral codes. He is talking about kitsch. The 300 poems he selected from thousands, I believe, in his mind would be considered sincere. I guess that must be what the modernists of the 20th centuries, the modernist arts, were trying to achieve. They are trying to achieve the sincerity of ancient people. What is insincere? And then in itself, I did this painting in 2016. It's actually over there. Personally, it's my favorite portrait. I guess gallerists would disagree, and all my words were based on those works. I love all my works, I have my favourites. It's what it is, but I remember when I was creating this painting, my ex-boyfriend asked me, because I gave the painting the name Decline, so we just chat on, and he sort of asked me, what is decline? And I thought about it, I come up with this answer. What is decline? When something ceases to exist for itself, but rather for its byproducts, it is then declining. And in my opinion, talking back to the idea of kitsch, repetition in art is kitsch. You just try to paint another ceiling today, it will be monstrous. I know a philosopher here would disagree, and I'm very bad at logic. But art is not entirely logical. It is ineffable by nature. So, next I'm going to fly off logic to talk about something. For me, sincerity will lead to insincerity, will lead to repetition. And repetition in art is always a means to an end, rather than an end in itself. Like love and faith, art is an act. Everything lies in the act. If one concentrates on the act as such, as an end in itself, repetition is abolished. I know you would argue that it's impracticable. Well, how practicable, how feasible are the thoughts, sentiments, pure idealism, and extreme anarchy of Jesus Christ? Perhaps truth is impracticable, and that which can be practiced is not truth. I want to tell you a beautiful poem written by Schiller. According to Plutarch, the shrine of Isis in Sais, Egypt, carried this inscription: I am all that has been, and is, and shall be, and my veil no mortal has hitherto raised. So based on this, Schiller wrote a beautiful poem called The Veiled Image of Sais. So it's a narrative poem, I'm not going to repeat it. Basically, it's a story of a fervent young man who goes to the temple of Sais, so that forbidden temple. And despite the warning that the veil covering the shrine cannot be raised by mortal, he insisted on seeing truth. So he lifted the forbidden veil. He sees truth, and he dies the next morning. So that's basically the poem. I think the young man is an artist. In animals, I think we have a very similar expression. So, 子曰：朝闻道，夕死可矣. The master said, if a man in the morning hear the right way, he may die in the evening. It is the unattainableness keeps one truly alive. It's not about finding the way, it's about finding the unattainable way. Next, I'll talk about artist. Every time I think of artists, it will remind me of Someone once asked the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard and said, what would you write on your tombstone? And he said, 2 words, that individual. And now I'm going to show you a symbol that is so overused and so misused, and it feels as tacky as Chinatown. It's the Taoist symbol. What does it say? Order and chaos, known and unknown. Are they young? Sorry. So, order and chaos, known and unknown, are the yang and the yin of the famous Taoist symbol. So 2 fish, head to tail. Order is the white, masculine fish. Chaos, its black and feminine counterpart. The black dot in white and the white in black indicate the possibility of transformation. Just one thing seems secure. The unknown can loom unexpectedly and large. Conversely, just when everything seems lost, new order can emerge from catastrophe and chaos. I think that's what this symbol says. Destruction is creation. And Nietzsche had this really lovely quote I just read yesterday, so I want to share with you. He said, "You need chaos in your soul to give birth to a dancing star." For Taoists, meaning is to be found on the border between the ever-entwined pair. So, it's on the border of the ever-entwined pair. To walk that border is to stay on the path of life and the divine way, what they call Tao. And I think for artists, meaning is to be found on the border between the ever-entwined pair. To walk on the border is to stay on the path of art, the divine way. Artists are border dwellers. They dwell in contradiction. And I think art is the unknown shines through matter in a partially articulated form. I've got this book, it's Kafka's diary. And Kafka, a brilliant artist. And at the back, British essayist Eric Heller wrote this: "In Kafka, we have before us the modern mind, splendidly trained for the great game to pretend that the world it comprehends is sterilized sobriety, is the only and ultimate reality there is, yet a mind living in sin with the soul of Abraham. Thus he knows 2 things at once, and both with equal assurance, that there is no God and that there must be a God. It is the perspective of the curse, the intellect dreaming of the dream of absolute freedom, and the soul knowing of its bondage." It says everything about artists. Let me know if we need it. I hope you're not tired. If you're tired, we can have 5 minutes break. No? Okay, I'll go on. For artists, I think art is confidentiality in the open. The more plainly privacy are conferred, the more stupendous the art. Unclosed and majestic of the Chinese idiom, so 艺术是光明正大的隐私。I think my theory applies to every true artists, and in this painting I referenced two of the greatest, Jesus Christ and Friedrich Nietzsche. Ecce Homo is a line Latin meaning behold the man in Bible. So just before Jesus goes to be crucified, he was showing in front of the crowds, and the Roman governor trying to plead for him and said to the angry crowds that behold the man, so look at him. Nietzsche, in his autobiography, kind of, used the same title, Ecce Homo. That's my work there. I don't know how to explain my work. I mean, it's a bit like, it's a bit like not just reading you my diary, but explaining. So, yeah. Let me just say this. I think, because we're talking about artists, I think artists always remind me of, I think they are Icarus, the Greek mythology, the boy that where the wax wings and flew out the maze, the labyrinth, and his father warned him, do not fly too close to the sun, otherwise it melts. And I think all artists are Icarus, they fly, and they all fly high, and they all will fall. But it's a beautiful destiny, because at least they fly. So the wings, it's created by my favorite contemporary artist, perhaps my only, his name is Lantian, and I think he is the only living artist whom I truly admire. Another wings painting. This is a very interesting paragraph that he wrote. It's from Lantian Kiefer's notebook. It's on Van Gogh. I think he must have wrote as maybe invented the story or something, but it's intriguing. So I'm going to read to you. One day in Paris, feeling drawn to a whore, he invited her to his place, more or less with the idea of converting her. It was a provocation on his part, directed at his family, but of which he was otherwise very fond. Whores are those generous women who, thanks to their total availability, even when feigned, wash over the earth like waves and never come to rest. Like artists, they dwell in contradiction, fluctuating between the process and the result. In the same breath, they open up to shut themselves off more effectively. They open up to shut themselves off more effectively. And art is confidentiality in the open. This is my current painting series. It's called Hortus Conclusus, again Latin, meaning enclose the garden. The image is very dark, but actually it has a writing at the bottom. It says twice 2 makes 4. So again, I like to reference literature in my work, and this work is, I always imagined if I could just put a text next to it to explain an artwork, then I would just put the entire book of Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground, so 地下室手记. I think I have to talk to my work in another occasion. I can only show you. This one is called Outsider. You can feel free to have a look afterwards. I find the life absurd, and the art, even ultimately an illusion. I find it more real than life. Only in art, I think I can tolerate life, or in other words, in beauty, I can tolerate life, and I did not steal that idea from Nietzsche. I guess I'll just show you. This work is called Paradise. So originally, paradise. What do you call the source of the word? So the origin of the word, it means walled garden, basically, close to garden. I like the idea of a cross, the inside and outside. Inside you've got the real wild animals, but everything is artificial, including the tree, whereas outside you do have, on the top, you do see the tree. This is called Forgetting of Being. So I'm stealing a phrase from Heidegger. It's again, inside is an empty cage, and I like the idea of separation and borders, and you know, everybody, humans are looking in, and I'm particularly trying to put the trees outside, very real, and inside is sort of painted. An allergy, a miracle. So this one is, instead of twice makes 4, the absolute truth, as some philosopher would believe, but twice to make 5 is actually originally from a Russian poster, or the USSR poster. You know, and so this painting is called A Miracle. I actually took a picture in Beijing and painted this work. So the Russian poster was, no, USSR poster was basically a similar story of the later Chinese Great Leap Forward. So things can turn into a miracle. Not even just in Great Leap Forward. I mean, even today, everybody says the 30 years of growth in China, the brilliant miracle. So there you are, twice 2 makes 5, it's possible. This is the work that I'm currently working on, which is over there. So hopefully I can show you in I think end of April during my exhibition. I gave the title "Over Your Body, Bars Grow." It's partly it's just my first impression of Hong Kong, but well, I can talk about that later. But it's, of course, it applies to everyone. And someone asked me, will I paint portraiture again or human figures again? Because I used to do these kind of things. Love, this one is called, it's just over there. So it's a human figures. This is the first one from the Love series. So I quote one of my favorite Chinese author, Lantian, life is an extravagant gown riddled with lies. So I was keep doing my work of these human figures until I start to feel that I'm about to repeat myself. And that's when I moved on to the new series, Enclose the Garden. So to answer the question that would I paint a human figure again, of course I will, but I think for artists, the best answer I could find is that to say 我在妙不可言的等待中，等待随便哪种未来。So it's from Lantian. Let waiting be not even a longing, but simply a welcome everything that comes. I think the Chinese translation is more beautiful. So how can one reconcile the completed artwork with the infiniteness of being by never pausing, never lingering, never thinking like a Goethe's Faust that stay yet another moment, you are so handsome. But expressing whatever comes to pass, whatever belongs to art, everything, life in the act. If one concentrates on the act as such, repetition is abolished. So far I've drawn a parallel between God and art. There is another word that I think I can also replace art with, that is poetry. Ultimately, I think I am at least pursuing poetry in my work. I'm only 5 years in my work, so there's a long way to go. I find myself often very attracted to the poetic ambiguity in things. And even though art does not progress like science, it has become very complicated today compared to the Renaissance, for example. So when I say poetry, of course, it includes the poetry, the poesis of what is so-called the language of painting, which, to speak plainly, is the brush stroke, the color, the composition, the technique that, well, to speak plainly. But I think there's something more now, something bigger and deeper, more intriguing. I'm going to show you, this is one of my favorite poems from the Tang Dynasty. See, how can I explain? So it's called 景色, and it's, well, like I guess it means a lavishly decorated zither. You can't translate Chinese.
and it's by one of the greatest late Tang poets, Li Shangyin. So, 锦瑟无端五十弦，一弦一柱思华年。庄生晓梦迷蝴蝶，望帝春心托杜鹃。沧海月明珠有泪，蓝田炙暖玉生烟。此情可待成追忆，只是当时已惘然。I'm only going to take the middle part of the poem to explain. So you see the first one is 庄生晓梦迷蝴蝶。Which is alluding a Chinese old story, or the Taoist, the famous Taoist story that Zhuangzi, Master Zhuang, dreamed himself a butterfly, and waking up and thought maybe I could be the butterfly, and dreaming myself as Zhuangzi. The translation is Master Zhuang lost himself in the morning dream of being a butterfly. The next line is again, it's Emperor Wang's amorous spring heart entrusted to a cuckoo bird. It's again referring to an old a story. It's an emperor during the dynasty, and he sent his courtier to in charge of the floods, and then had an affair with his wife. And then when the courtier came back, he felt very regretted. So he left his kingdom to the courtier to be in charge. And then he just left, and people believe that his spirit went on to a cuckoo bird. And then people say they hear the cuckoo bird sing so sadly until the cuckoo bird spit blood out. And also in Chinese, of course, cuckoo bird and azalea, the flower azalea, has the same name, Du Juan, and azalea has the blood red color. So the third line, 沧海月明珠有泪, deep under the vast azure sea, reflected the bright moonlight, pearls, cry tears. Again, it was referring to the old text that I'll save you, but I think in the West you've got the same story that the mermaids cry. You've got their tears turn into pearls. And the last one, Indigo Mountain, based on the warm sunlight, jade releases smoke. It's again referring to old texts. You see, this is where culture is. You only exist because of the past, and why that is so beautiful. So the old text, so in China you've got the Lantian monks, same spelling as my name, and they produce jade, which is the most revered objects in Chinese culture. And what is known is that it's a bit like a mirage, so from a very far distance, you'll be able to see that quarry, that mountain, have smoke coming out. But when you go close to that mountain, the smoke just disappears. So that's what that poem is referring to. So I'm going to explain. So first, the Master Zhuang lost his morning dream of being a butterfly. You have reality, dream, man, butterfly, and it's an ineffable confounding. The next line is hello. Okay. The next line is life after life. So the emperor and the afterlife, and then man, cuckoo bird. It's unfulfilled one. The third line I find is the last two is even more beautiful. Is just look at it. It's the deep azure sea, the vast ocean, and the moon, the cold moon on a very above, and then you've got the the pearl at the bottom of the sea, the tiny little pearl, which can be a tear. You've got macrocosm and microcosm at the same time, universe and human emotion. You've got the solid, so the moon and the pearl, and you've got liquid, the ocean and the tear. And then that unknown sorrow. And the last one, the indigo mountain. So the cold indigo is a cold color as well. Bathed under the warm sunlight, so you've got a warm color. And then again you have stone and smoke and unattainable distance. And even later, you've got I'm going to read in Chinese, it's a pretty beautiful line, poetry. 待容州为诗家之景，如蓝田日暖，凉雨生烟，可望而不可至于梅节之前。So it's sort of for me, it's like it talks about transformation and interconnection between everything. And as a work of art itself, a poetry, a poem, it has this contrasts and tension, simplicity and complexity at the same time. And also, I think it's the best illustration about the word that I said in the beginning from Gospel that I paraphrased, where art is, we cannot reach. Yeah, so again, Paul Valery had a line. A poem is a fully fashioned fragment of a construction that does not exist. Now I think I can use sort of the same illustrative approach to talk about art today, but mainly with the purpose to show you what contemporary art or art today can achieve, despite all the nihilistic junk that I showed you before. So this is a work by Anselm Kiefer, and it's in Louvre. It's actually the first permanent commission by Louvre since the Second World War. I'm going to show you a little bit. It's a painting and an installation. Let me just show you. So you've got the work in the middle. It's a painting. And you already think this is one of the installation called Danny. And there's another one just going another angle. With my phone, so it's not that good. I'm not sure how Anselm Kiefer would really, of course he would say that there is no absolute interpretation, and I agree as well. And every time I look at these works, I just come up with new ideas, but I'll just see what I can tell you today. So on the left, it's an installation. He named it Danae. It's the Greek mythology. She's the mother of Perseus, and Zeus had a golden shower on her to make her, to impregnate her. It's not the Trump golden shower, but it's a golden shower. So what it is just a lad and a sunflower, which is a repeating motif from Anselm Kiefer's work, and their books. They're all made of lead, and sunflower seeds and dipped in gold. So it's something. It's from nothing to birth. And then I think Perseus, the golden shower that turned into the semi-god, and the god later killed his grandpa, so it goes to death as well. Aesthetically, I mean, it's color-wise and the rhythm and everything, it's beautiful. Now let's turn into the opposite. That's how my work was inspired from the title. He called it Hortus Conclusus, but my one is Enclosed a Garden. Hortus Conclusus has another reference in the Middle Ages literature. Hortus Conclusus very much meant Virgin Mary. It implied the Immaculate Conception, enclosed womb. So it's on one side you've got the Greek. I think she's a princess, and just receiving shower and gave birth to a god. And then on the opposite side you've got Mary having an enclosed womb, and then immaculately conceived Jesus Christ. So again, you've got that nothing to something, death to life. Jesus Christ again died. So I think the little hill maybe has something implying the later crucifixion. So in the middle, Anzang Kiefer did this painting. It's very, very tall. I hope so. You can see he calls this arsenal. It's an old word, or it means the furnace of the alchemists. The alchemists used this kind of container of furnace in the old times to turn matter into something magic. So he called this painting arsenal, which means a furnace. And in this painting, obviously, we see it could be a man, it could be a dead man, and then it could be a live man. It could even be Jesus Christ, or it could be the artist himself. And there actually is a cross in the middle. Just photo is bad, so you probably won't be able to see. But then obviously you can see the universe as well. So you've got macrocosm and microcosm interlinked together. And you've got this, I think the reason he called this work arsenal and furnace is because everything is sort of transforming inside, all kinds of elements. It implies, of course, a transformation, and also matter and spirit sort of mixed and so also there's an element of time in it, I think, as well, because I believe this work, I mean, what if he's Jesus, or if he's dead, then he would just turn into the particles of universe. You know what I mean? It's like, it seems that I'm talking nonsense, but there is a structure in his work, a poetic structure, and of course, it's extremely beautiful in terms of its construction. And I think it's very much just this work, it sort of reminded me of the sort of construction of that Tang poem. And that's why I really believe, like today, particularly today, poetry and art can work hand in hand. Art ultimately, again, is the unknown shines through matter in a partially articulated form. And I just put the other quote there because it really touches me. We are never more profoundly human than when we express our yearnings, nor closer to the divine than when we imagine. Finally, what is love? After all, it is quite simple. Love is everything which enhances, widens, and enriches our life in its heights and in its depths. Franz Kafka. Thank you.